Have you ever wondered what it is that separates people that do succeed with their diets and people that don't? In this video, I'm going to be going through 4 key diet killing mistakes that I've witnessed over the years countless times, so you can understand which of these apply to you and what you need to do to start moving forward. My name's Jack Griffiths. I've been a fat loss coach since 2018. I got into this business when I went through my own fat loss transformation after years of unsuccessful attempts, and I've now helped countless people completely transform both their physical and mental health. And my goal with this channel is to show you the exact lessons that I learned and have applied to countless other people to go through these life-changing transformations. Diet mistake number 1 is something that I personally experienced for a long time, which is paying attention to your food choices but not paying attention to your calories. There were a lot of times in the past when I wanted to change, I wanted to get into better shape, I really wasn't happy with how I looked, so my answer to that, quite innocently, was to start looking at the types of foods that I was eating. So looking at what I was choosing for my breakfast, my lunches, my dinners, the snacks I was having, and the overall goal that I had was to try and change the meals so that they were more healthy choices by looking at things such as chicken and rice and those sorts of meals. But the problem I was having was, despite the fact that I was making these changes, I was perhaps switching around meals for new things which were technically healthier alternatives, is that I would never lose any weight. And it was only when I realized that the problem wasn't just the food choices I was making, but it was my overall calorie consumption. And until you can appreciate this and start to take this into account, you will not see results from a fat loss perspective, because this is incredibly important. If you want to lose weight or you want to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, period. The amount of calories that you're burning throughout the course of the day through simply being alive, or just the activities that you're doing, your steps, your workouts, and everything else in between, that number of calories needs to be higher than the amount of calories you're taking in through food and drink for you to be able to lose weight. So if you are eating healthily, you're making good choices, you're making sure that you've got a good amount of fruit and veg, and you're eating a high amount of protein, all of those things are absolutely great. But if you are still consuming too many calories, you are not in that deficit, you will not see results. So it is really, really important. I can't overstate this enough, that if you have a goal that is centered around seeing changes to the way that you look, as opposed to just improving overall health, then you need to be paying attention to your calorie consumption, not just improving the choices that you make. I would always advocate that, of course, there are so many benefits to making better food choices, but like I say, if you're someone that's got a goal that's specifically focused around fat and or weight loss, calorie consumption, your total intake, is a massive part of that, and it's not something that you can ignore if you want to see results. Diet mistake number 2 is that your food choices leave you feeling constantly hungry throughout the course of the day. When you are aiming to be in a calorie deficit, the chances are you are going to be taking in less food than you are used to over a typical day and week. And with that, the food choices that you make then become really, really key if you are going to be able to stay compliant with the diet that you set out for yourself. So if you are picking meals that are very high in volume when it comes to calories, but don't necessarily leave you feeling full, for example, think crisps, chocolate bars, those types of things which are very calorie dense, then when you're trying to stick to a smaller calorie target, that's going to be really, really difficult, because very quickly you're going to feel hungry, you're going to start getting those headaches that we feel, you're going to feel a bit down, hangry, irritated, everything else, we all know the feeling. So the food choices that you make, as well as, like we said, the calories, both of these things tie in together, are also really important. So you want to look at what foods can you pick that are high in volume but low in calories. And examples of that might be things like fruit that typically have a high water content, things like vegetables. So maybe can you stack out your main meals, for example, and increase the volume of them by just adding lots of vegetables in, things that like carrots, green beans, peppers, whatever it is that you enjoy, add those things in, and then looking at other options for breakfast, lunches, dinners, and just seeing where can you potentially make better choices with things that will leave you feeling a bit more full for longer. And that is such an incredibly important point, as I say, because you can have the best of intentions, but if you are just feeling hungry all the time, being successful when it comes to a fat loss transformation is about being able to stay consistent over a long period of time. If you're always feeling hungry, you're feeling miserable because your diet makes you feel crap, then that is just never going to be something that you're able to stick with. So you've got to start to become more in tune with not just the calories, but also the food choices that you're making as well. Diet mistake number 3, and this is a really big one, is that you over restrict yourself to try and speed up the process and get results faster. And it just does not work like this. The amount of times that I have spoken to people over the years who tell me that they have lost weight in the past to only then put it back on over the coming weeks and months and years, it is just such a predictable process. When I ask them the questions about what they've tried in the past, perhaps they've gone for things like keto, shake diet, Slimming Well, Weight Watchers, Cambridge diet, like whatever it is, you name it, I've probably heard of it before. And the problem with these diets is that for as long as you stick to them, they work, they will get you results because they put you in a calorie deficit. However, the way that these diets often also work is that they cut out all of the foods that you enjoy to eat, and those same foods, which can sometimes be the things that are guilty of taking our diet off track. But the problem is when you follow a diet like this, which is incredibly restrictive, is that you can stick to it for a period of time, but this is not realistic when it comes to making it a lifestyle change. So as soon as perhaps you get to that result, you've lost a stone, 2 stone, 3 stone, whatever it might be that you were aiming for, you stop that way of eating and you go back to the same approach to dieting that caused you the problems in the first place. And of course, if you just go back to where you were at the beginning, you're back to square one, then it's inevitable that the weight will only come back on. So you have to look at an approach when it comes to food and calories overall, where you move away from restriction and you move away from this 100% in versus 100% out mindset that is very likely the thing that's holding you back. So instead, what I would encourage you to do is to have your calorie target that you're working towards, the calorie target that you know puts you into a deficit, and then look to see how you can incorporate your current meals, the current foods that you're eating as part of that calorie target rather than cutting everything out. We know that right now, the meals that you're having work in your schedule. They work in your routine, they work with your commitments, your lifestyle, family, relationships, everything else, it works for you. So you would be far better off looking at the current meals that you're having and asking yourself, how can I adapt these meals that I have right now? Perhaps in terms of adding in a source of protein, looking at the portion sizes, adding in vegetables to make them more filling, to keep you full for longer, rather than trying to completely create a whole new menu for yourself, which is potentially expensive, time consuming, it's a lot of effort, a lot of admin. Look at what you're having right now and see how you can incorporate the meals that you know you enjoy and like to have, and that will be a far easier process. And what I say to all of my clients, and this is super, super important for you to remember, is when I set them a calorie target, what I say is there are no foods as part of this process that are strictly off limits. However, if you can ensure that you are sticking within a protein target and a calorie target, then you will continue to make progress, but there will be days where perhaps cravings are a little bit higher. You do really want to have that chocolate bar or that bag of crisps, and that is absolutely fine. You can make those things work within your calorie targets, but it might just mean having a little bit of a smaller portion somewhere else, but that will be a far easier process for you to stick to long term than just feeling like you can never actually have those foods that you want to eat. And I think what I often see from people is when you put yourself in a position where you are not allowed to have XYZ, all that leads to happening is that you then want those things even more. So if you put yourself in a mindset where you say, if there is something that I want, I can have it, but I just have to make a decision as to whether it's worth it to me on this day because I'm working within this particular calorie target. That is a much more liberating way of approaching food, and it will give you a much better chance of staying consistent in the long term rather than just following these restrictive approaches again and again and again where you lose weight only to put it back on in the future. And diet mistake number 4, this one I was probably the most guilty of myself for such a long period of time, is that you stay absolutely consistent from Monday to Friday. However, as soon as the weekends come around, everything just completely goes off track. And this is, again, like I say, it's something that I see really frequently having conversations with people all of the time, is that you make such a big effort throughout the course of the week to eat well, to watch your choices, perhaps to even to track your calories. But as soon as the weekend comes around, you want to blow off some steam, you're not going to track your food. And the problem is with that approach is that weekends account for nearly 30% of the entire year. So if for 30% of the year you are not being consistent with your diet, and if anything you're going completely off the rails, you can imagine that that is going to make a huge difference when you've got a fat loss goal. So you need to start thinking about the weekends when you're looking at your fat loss diet and ensure that you are being consistent across the course of the entire week rather than just Monday to Friday. Because if every single weekend you're consuming an extra 1,000 calories on Saturday and 1,000 calories on Sunday, well, if you've got a calorie target of 2,000 calories per day, you are then consuming a whole extra day's worth of food just on the weekend alone. And like when we said about that impact on fat loss, impact on the scales, those things are going to make such a big difference over the course of weeks and months when we look at our average calories consumed. So with that moving forward, what I want you to do is to start thinking when Saturday and Sunday comes around about that consistency. And one little trick that you can use if you've got events in the diary that are particularly important, perhaps where you want to be able to drink alcohol or you know you're going to eat a little bit more, because I appreciate these things do come up, and for most of us we don't want to become some recluse that never goes out and can never enjoy ourselves, is something that I call calorie banking. And what I would do here is Monday to Friday I would look to reduce my calorie intake every single day by 200 calories, and what that's going to do is it's going to bank me 1,000 extra calories that I can consume on Saturday or Sunday, whenever the event is, without going over my average calorie goal. Now, this is a really effective method you can use. I don't recommend using it all of the time. It's something that I would use sparingly for particularly important events, because it is going to leave you feeling a little bit more hungry. It might even impact the quality of your workouts. But if you want to be able to stay on track whilst also being able to enjoy a birthday, a wedding, a baby shower, you name it, this is a really good approach that you can use. Drop a comment below and let me know which of these mistakes you think you've been the most guilty of. Make sure you're subscribing to my channel for more videos like this, and if you feel like you need help at a one-to-one level, hit the link in my description and apply for coaching now.